Hello and welcome to the 100th edition of The Hard Sell, the programme all about adverts where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. That's right, the 100th. Counting the pilot as 0 because it sucked, I've done a full century of these things now. 100 13 to 35 minute programmes in which some bloke with a degree overthinks adverts for everything from soft drinks to mortgages, petrol and shares in the Channel Tunnel. I've analysed chimps drinking tea, toucan stealing stout, sexually aggressive robot washing machines, easily amused alien beings, this thing, even talking crockery and naked ladies in the same episode. Yes, life certainly comes at you fast, as indeed does death. In the middle of planning for this episode, the news broke of the death of Richard Williams, a legend in animation circles but relatively obscure to the general public, even though he really should be as famous as Brad Bird, Chuck Jones, or even Walt Disney. And what's more, most of those people would agree with me. Half Canadian, half British, steadfastly based in London so as to keep far away from the American studio system as he could, he made several films over the years, starting with the eerie expressionistic allegory The Little Island, and including a movie based on popular cutesy ragdoll toys Raggedy Ann and Andy that eschewed the expected whimsical Toyland antics in favour of nightmarish surrealist horror. Didn't do well at the box office. And then of course there was The Thief and the Cobbler, which he worked on for decades without ever managing to finish it properly, largely thanks to dickless shark-finned moneymen. But that's too long and sad a story to be told here. He's best known as essentially the co-director, with Bob Zemeckis, of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Williams was the man behind the animated content of the film, all of which is frankly miraculous. The standalone cartoon that makes up the first 3 minutes of the film is astonishing in its own right, but of course the real triumph is the combination, in which Williams and his crack London-based team created for the first time animated creatures that seem to exist in the same world as Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd, Joanna Cassidy and the rest. Animation and live action had been combined before, of course, and to very cool effect, but they weren't even trying what Zemeckis, Spielberg and Williams were attempting here, to create a world where animated characters were literally real, solid and three-dimensional, capable of interacting realistically with actual people and objects, all while still subject to all the usual rules of cartoon physics. You weren't supposed to literally believe Gene Kelly was actually dancing next to Jerry Mouse, whereas you absolutely were meant to buy that Bob Hoskins really is physically wrestling with this annoying little rabbit bastard. And you do. And that's thanks to the genius of both of the film's directors, because Zemeckis doesn't compromise on the live action footage either. He shoots the film like, well, an ordinary film. There's barely, if any, of the locked-off flat shot seen in Gene and Jerry's big scene. The camera is in constant motion. Basically, the secret Zemeckis hit on is to direct the film as if the animated characters are there all along, since that's the premise. It's an extra complication and therefore challenge for Richard Williams in his studio, and goddamn do they step to it. Before you're halfway through, you practically have to punch yourself in the face to remind yourself that these things aren't really there. And then you punch yourself again to remind yourself that they were painstakingly drawn in, by hand, frame by goddamned frame. As I said, it is a miracle. Williams won 2 Oscars for it, including one specifically created for him because his work was just that impressive. He even provided the voice of Droopy.
Your floor, sir. Have a good day, sir.
So that's why Who Framed Roger Rabbit is one of the greatest films ever made, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Richard Williams is one of the reasons for its greatness. And they weren't going to hire any old twat for an animation job of this prestige and complexity. So what was it that got him hired for such a difficult job in the first place? Well, it wasn't the box office receipts from Raggedy Ann and Andy. The work that had kept Williams' hand in, that had helped pay for him to keep on working on The Thief and the Cobbler under his own auspices, was mostly, but not exclusively, in Britain, and it was on, you guessed it, Adverts. Loads and loads of adverts. Before CGI was cheap, before even the sort of elaborate practical effects prevalent in the 80s were practical, 2D animation was the way to make your adverts stand out, give your product a distinctive look and feel, and depict impossible, or at the very least extremely impractical things like toucans and airplanes. Many great animators, just as many great filmmakers, either cut their metaphorical teeth on advertising or used it as a source of income, or both. From Hallison Batchelor and the legendary Bob Godfrey, Williams' mentor but also mentor to the entire British animation industry, to the Argentine master Oscar Griot, who went on to design much of the more squishy and tentacled aspects of Men in Black and Monsters Inc., and of course Richard Williams himself, whose London studio served for several decades as a finishing school for future animation masters, many of whom went on to the likes of Disney. Here, in no particular order, are some of Williams' most famous, impressive, or noteworthy contributions to the history of advertising.
You know 2 reasons I left the North Pole? First, the frothy Cresta with all the fruity flavors. Second, I ain't too hot on the ice, man.
Cresta, in 5 fruity flavors.
It's frothy, man.
This guy was one of his most famous creations, or more accurately co-creations, and a shining example of the power of advertising, in that the product was so horrible nobody would have bought it else. Cresta was a line of soft drinks whose main unique selling point outside of the beer was the fact that it was frothy rather than fizzy. How this was achieved is a mystery, at least to me, but judging from the taste, it involved several possibly illegal chemical additives which caused it to taste faintly like one of those half-assed fruit-flavoured medicines that you can sometimes get in a doomed attempt to get kids to take the damn things. By rights, it should have disappeared from the shelves near instantaneously, but then so should Smash brand instant mashed potatoes. Both products were saved by a canny advertiser named John Webster, who came up with the idea for those Smash Martians in 1969 or so, and for his next trick invented a polar bear in sunglasses inspired by Jack Nicholson in Easy Rider, who constantly lost his cool, not to mention control of his motor functions, at the taste of Cresta.
Hi, man. This is Cresta's new flavor, black currant. I wonder what's... Black currant flavor, huh? It's okay.
Cresta, now in 5 fruity flavors.
It's frothy, man.
The Richard Williams studio was hired to realise it, and in a flurry of flowing lines and bellowing, the product was saved, sort of. Even the coolness of the bear couldn't make up for the taste forever, although it didn't actually disappear altogether until 2007, which is how I know what it tasted like.
Baby, I will be your ever-loving fan. Give me the drink I really love, a bottle or a can. It's frothy, man. I don't want to drink the ocean, 'cause man, that's really rough. But when it comes to Cresta, here's one bear that just can't get enough. It's frothy, man.
Another thing this guy had in common with his Smash robots, he had his own series of tie-in children's picture books, drawn by Williams himself. It all went towards The Thief and the Cobbler.
Hi, Cresta! Wanna see my stamp collection?
Mind if I drink this new cream soda flavor, Cresta?
Like my new Zanzibar triangular one?
Rimsky-Korsakov! Terrific!
Lucky I didn't show in my Mongolian one. I can't take all the excitement.
Try new Cresta in 4 terrific flavors.
It's still frothy, man.
Sometimes Williams got to play with licensed properties, even before Roger Rabbit. The Pink Panther was one he was particularly associated with, having done the animated titles for the last 2 movies to include Peter Sellers' In Vivo. Note the elaborate architecture and gleeful absurdism. He obviously enjoyed working with the titular gentleman, scholar and acrobat, as he later put him in his own studio logo. And occasionally pulled him out for advertising work.
Owens Corning and your builder bring you the Thermal Crafted Home. A computer program helps design in the best energy-saving options before the house is built, like how it faces the sun, how much Owens Corning insulation it needs, or the kind of windows. And it's built to keep saving energy. Ask your builder about a Thermal Crafted Home. You could end up living with lower fuel bills.
And the great thing about animated stars is that they won't complain that, say, advertising fiberglass loft insulation is beneath them. Well, not usually. I doubt the Disney characters here would have shown up for a lower profile soft drink than Fanta. Squirt! I'll cut Bugs Bunny's balls before I appear for Squirt! Incidentally, this was actually a few years before Roger Rabbit, and might very well have contributed to Williams getting the job. Speaking of cartoon characters as if they were real, Williams was fond of messing with the fourth wall in that way too. This tobacco advert from 1977, for example, with its beautifully animated lion discussing the filming of the advert he's actually appearing in right now. Dizzying if you think about it.
You know, I used to be in that dull 9-to-5 zoo routine. I just couldn't escape. I toyed with the idea of becoming a heavy in Trafalgar Square, but who's going to run off with Nelson anyway, right? Thanks, boy. And as I was clocking out one night, I saw this ad in the Zoo News. Lion wanted to star in film. Born Free, I thought. Terrific. It turns out to be a commercial for this new Roll Your Own Tobacco. Why not? Advertising makes stars out of those monkeys on TV, right? You know, this stuff's pretty good. What's it called? Samson, eh? Where was I? Oh, yeah. Well, this could be my big break, you know. Mr. DeMille, if you're watching, have you considered the return of Spartacus? Or Planet of the Lions? Even Pause?
Okay, action! The golden tobacco with a little more strength.
Oh, boy. What a salesman.
Notice that the lion is depicted rolling, lighting and dragging on the damn thing, at a time when most tobacco-related adverts, in live action, were coy on depicting the actual act of smoking. I don't think such depictions were actively prohibited until the 80s, but looking back there does seem to have been a consensus that it was more trouble than it was worth even then. But here it doesn't matter. He's not human, he's not real, and neither for that matter is the tobacco, or even the rolling papers. Plus it's a cinema ad, although you'll notice it's rated U. Or take this one, an advert almost literally about itself. Practically an animator's showreel with advertising copy over the top. It's almost a satire, as Williams and his team effectively show off how good they are in various random setups and scenarios, while the commercial product actually just sort of sits there basking in their reflected glory. It wouldn't work half as well if Williams and his studio weren't every bit as good as they clearly think they are, but they are. Williams didn't make all the adverts personally, of course. He was a studio head, although he probably wouldn't thank me for bestowing the title on him. He had a whole team, proficient in various styles of animation, which is one of the things that set the Williams studio apart from the others. There was your standard cartoonish squiggle vision that Williams learned from Bob Godfrey.
Look here, Mums. It's about time we had a few things out in the open. You're after our Johnson's baby bath, and don't think we haven't noticed. We know its gentle foam and delicate perfume are hard to resist. We can understand you wanting smooth, baby-soft skin. But at our expense, have you no shame? Ooh. Johnson's baby bath keeps you soft and smooth from top to bottom.
And passed on to his employees, Mr. Wyatt and Mr. Catania, so successfully they ended up forming their own company. You know, the one that spawned the Tetley Tea Folk and the KP Friars. Something common to this style is the deliberate choice not to draw more than was strictly necessary. Keep it spare and Spartan. Focus the colour and motion on the important part. Not only does it save time and money, it enhances the function, i.e. selling a thing, by eliminating the viewer's choice of where to look. A cluttered frame is of no use for advertising purposes, at least not if you're using this technique. There are, of course, others that suit different products that are more serious and less tangible than a packet of crisps or a bottle of baby shampoo. Like the concept of Canada, the land of Williams's birth, which was much better sold as the greatest country on earth via a dreamlike, deliberately impressionistic set of ghostly images, so simple in construction but evocative in practice that you can almost discern the scratch of Sharpie on paper.
They're gathered from the past to tell our story of survival, courage, hardship, heritage, discovery, challenge, good times, struggles, and conflict. To let us all discover the greatest country in the world.
Discovery train, it's Canada on the moon.
Or take this one Cal advert, which is even sparer, using the absolute bare minimum of lines, but also softer, so the style says light and elegant, rather than heavy with history.
Hey, heard about new One Cal?
The whisper on the street is this. Sweet nothing. There's a fit they say is delish. Sweet nothing.
New great-tasting One Cal's a regular fizz, but with none of the sugar and only 1 of the calories.
The room is true. It's a fizz for me and you. Sweet nothing. Sweet nothing.
And at the opposite end of the spectrum, just soak this one in.
Now that you have acquired the power, my son, you must swear to me by the sacred sword of Jovan that you will use the power only for good, never for evil. Jovan's sex appeal aftershave alone. Remember, never for evil.
Rotoscoped Rosetta-style action par excellence. the kind of freewheeling camera work that was practically a signal to Robert Zemeckis that Richard Williams knew no fear. In fact, this sort of painstakingly watercoloured panning and zooming action was a specialty. His other Oscar-winning film, 1971's A Christmas Carol, was founded on Richard Williams' ability to mimic camera work in animation. It was especially useful to depict the drama of nature. A tree happening has never been so epic. But what's really impressive is the patience it took to make that out of God knows how many individually watercoloured frames. Some barely any different from the other. Williams himself, and indeed most animators, would probably shrug, but to someone with very little patience and even less artistic ability, it's almost incomprehensible. I mean, look at this thing. Look at it.
Oh, blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Way, blow the man down. Blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Give me some time to blow the man down. The gale, she is running far out on the deep. Way, blow the man down. The lightning is home like a blast in the sea. Give me some time to blow the man down. The wind is howling about the boat. Way, blow the man down. The boys are sailing so heavy for home. Give me some time to blow the man down.
Richard Williams' talent was hardly unrecognised in his own time. As I said, he won 2 Oscars just for Roger Rabbit, plus an Emmy, a BAFTA, a Saturn Award, and another Oscar, among others. A far cry from Van Gogh only ever managing to sell 1 painting for a meat pie. But still, he should be one of those animators everyone's heard of, like Bird or Jones or even Johnny McHuggengrope here. And I have no doubt he would have been if The Thief and the Cobbler had ever come out in the state he wanted it to. Look it up. The closest thing to his vision is the bootleg recobbled cut. Here's a link to it. If you see it under the title of The Princess and the Cobbler, or worse yet, Arabian Night, run a mile. Especially the Arabian Night version, for which Miramax added speed-written songs and celebrity voices, along with visibly inferior new animated scenes and a half-assed script so generic as to be physically painful. It's like the 11th worst thing Harvey Weinstein ever did. In lieu of The Thief and the Cobbler, we have to content ourselves with the various short films Williams made, like Ziggy's Gift or A Christmas Carol, or that terrifying Ragdoll Nightmare, although even that was taken away from him at the end. And of course, all those times he put his talent to work, selling shampoos, soft drinks, insurance, alcohol, chocolate, just about anything else you can think of. And it's easy for Bill Hicks to say, you do an advert, you're off the artistic roll call, or it was when he was alive. I don't even disagree with him. And he's talking about a different part of the process, so it's apples and oranges to an extent. But yes, in the abstract, I suppose it is sad that Williams had to effectively prostitute his talent to the Coca-Cola Company and Johnson & Johnson and the rest. But he still made art out of it. Compromised though it might be, it's still art. And it all went to help create more art. Far bigger and far less compromise. Until it was taken away from him, that is. It's an open question, the place of advertising in a truly free society. Someone like Guy Debord would have a categorical answer, but he probably put it in unnecessarily complicated and circuitous language so that no one could understand him, the big French ponce. But Richard Williams represents at least one positive. His disdain for the studio system, combined with a tendency to go horribly over budget every single damn time, meant he had a hard time getting any other kind of paid work. Which is why The Thief and the Cobbler was in production for so long. If nothing else, the existence of the advertising industry provides an outlet for mavericks like Williams to both exercise their talents and get paid so they can continue to do so on their own terms. So that's one for the pro column at least. Happy 100th episode. And thank you, Mr. Williams.
Baby, I will be your ever-loving fan. Give me the drink I really love, a bottle or a can. It's frothy, man. I don't want to drink the ocean, 'cause man, that's really rough. But when it comes to Cresta, here's one bear that just can't get enough. It's frothy, man.
Hey you lovely people, thank you for watching. Do you want to see these things a week before anyone else? Do you want access to even more video essays, random musings, and absurdist close-down based humour? Do you want to read and help shape my new book about the history of the British Broadcasting Corporation? Do you want me to continue to have food and shelter? Well, consider that one a bonus. Support me on Patreon now. Only good can come of it. I promise.